Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are. This is Clouds on Mars Products. In this series, we discuss various challenges that our customers put in front of us, and we have this privilege and engineering joy of solving them. Today, we will discuss the challenges that several customers have with their semantic models, their Power BI reports, and how we solve them for them. My name is Marcin Kubica. I'm head of product at Clouds on Mars, and today I'm joined by Radosław Górecki, BI Competency Center lead at Clouds on Mars. Radek, good to have you here today.
Thank you for inviting me here.
We have several projects in which we build Power BI reports from scratch. Then, in projects like this, we implement all our best practices to make sure that those reports perform well. But sometimes our customers come to us and they say, please save us because our reports do not work as good as they should. Radek, can you describe some of those projects, or can you describe some of the pains that customers have with their semantic models and their Power BI reports? What you have from your experience?
Yeah, thank you for the question. The question is great. So the clients that contact with us are contacting with us with different issues or different tasks that we could prepare for them. One of those tasks is, as you said, the model is stopped working, is not performative, it's not fast. Please make it faster. The report is slow. The refresh is taking too long. So those are obvious things we know what to do from the beginning. Okay, so let's look at the report. Let's see if this is the report issue, if it's the model issue, if this is the architecture issue. So we are having the path how to approach. But sometimes the clients are not aware that this is the model issue, the semantic model issue. They are just contacting with us, for example, a task which is preparation of semantic model for AI. So they have some models and they want to ask AI about this model, about the data. They are facing sometimes the issue with the proper results and they are looking for some help for preparation of this model. And of course, we are jumping on this model and we are doing a review, we're doing the assessment. And sometimes we find out that this model is not correctly prepared. So from the performance perspective, but also it's not properly prepared from the AI perspective. So this is when we find out, okay, first let's redesign the model to be faster, more performative, to store only the data we need. And then let's, of course, prepare the data for AI. What else? Clients sometimes contact with us because they observe that the capacity is running out of computational units, out of fuel, I would call it. So they observe the capacity and they see that, okay, there is some issue. We know that this is the model that is causing it. We need to improve it, to make it smaller, to make the calculations in DAX, measures in DAX work better. So those are the most obvious reasons that client contact with us, and we are happy to help, of course.
I have one question to what you've just said. So obviously, performance issue is visible when the response time in the user interface is longer than expected. But you also mentioned a long report refresh time, so something that is not really visible to the users. Why this is
Refresh
a
model.
problem? The model
Yeah.
refresh, yeah, not
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
refresh of
Yeah.
the user interface, but the model refresh.
Yes.
Why this may be a problem?
It may be a problem. Let's imagine the situation that the client needs to have a data every hour. So every hour they start to run the refresh of the model to have the latest actuals. They need it. And there is a situation when the model is refreshing 1 hour or even above 1 hour. So this plan will not work. The
So
model needs to refresh.
they don't get data on time, basically.
Exactly. So of course there are many approaches to this situation. You may refresh not full model, you may refresh only part, but yeah, we are just investigating what's the issue there. Yeah.
And the second thing that you mentioned is related with capacity running out of units. And the typical mitigation plan is to increase capacity, to increase performance, but this becomes eventually a cost issue, right? So even if the performance is fixed, we have a new problem, the cost issue that can be perhaps reduced. That's why clients are contacting us.
Yeah, exactly. This is true very often. Imagine a business users who has quite a position in the company. So he will tell IT that he needs just more capacity units and
Just fix it, whatever it takes.
just fix it. Yeah, I have a money. So they will just turn on this bigger capacity and it's twice the cost. So is this the right solution? I believe not. Let's first take a look at the model if it's needed, because most often those models just needs to be cleaned. Yeah, just needs to be someone with fresh eye needs to look at it and propose some maybe just quick fixes, yeah, or
Mhm.
maybe redesign. Yeah.
So, getting a little bit deeper into this problem, so we know that this is very often the problem with the semantic model, maybe with the measures. Can you describe some of the problems that we typically see in this kind of semantic models or BI reports that are not performing well?
Yeah, this is also a great topic. So let's imagine a situation. Yeah, so let's imagine how business works. Business works very fast. Business needs to have answer right now. So, how the models and reports are constructed in the organizations often. So, there is a citizenship development. Someone is picked from the department and is creating a proof of concept of model. This is a very small model. Of course, it is working. So, they are deciding, let's go with it to production. And when it's small, it's not so visible that the preparation was not so good behind the scenes. Most often, the preparation was done in some kind of Excel way. I will just bring all of the Excel tables into the Power BI, will not prepare a star schema, just drop everything and it will work. The numbers will match. But the problem appears when the business wants to have some scale. Yeah, wants to have a detailed data, wants to have actuals per day. Sometimes even per month could be tricky. Actuals per SKU. So you need to bring more data, and then the problem appears. So first problem is the citizen development without any best practices approach. The second problem is that business iterates very fast. So it means that they are sending you a requirements for a model. You're discussing with them, you're preparing the model, and with all of the best practice. No matter which company will develop the model, they will try to have some best practice at the beginning. And the business is satisfied with that. But of course, there are additional questions that appears, additional data that needs to be there. And the answer needs to be for yesterday, not for a week or a month. So they are pushing so hard that sometimes developers agreed to not think about the volumetry of the data, about what is needed, about best practice. They are just dropping those custom mappings, those additional data there. And you land on a landscape that you have a lot of stuff that is really not needed, not cleaned, are not coming from master data, but from some business mappings that are not fully created for all of the products. And those things are becoming a problem. And last but not least is the fact when sometimes you are giving the model to the client and client starts to work on it on its own without some kind of proper guidance from the organization.
So
So
the
of course,
client continues development of this model,
continues
right?
the development exactly. And of course, business needs to have answers quickly. So of course, custom mappings, some AI measures, which is very often right now. So people start to ask AI, bring me a measure, which is twice as slow as normally, written, especially for complex measures, because not complex measures are not problematic for AI. But there is a lot of complex business questions that business have. So sometimes the DAX is just complex and code needs to be validated, check against performance, and then it needs to be put to production. So those are the issues. And so when we having this model, we are investigating. We are starting to investigate what's the problem behind the scenes. So
So, Radek, we will go to this part in a
okay.
moment. But to summarize what you've said, I understand that we see two typical scenarios. Scenario number one, the semantic model and the report was built without applying good practices. So it was suboptimal from the beginning and it has to be fixed. And scenario number two, report initially was okay. Maybe even we were involved in building this report, applying all the best practices that we are having as an organization. And then when we shared this model with the client and let the client's developers continue the work, then there was a deterioration that in effect caused performance issue.
Yeah, exactly. And of course, business time. The business time is different than the time that we are living in. So they on yesterday, yeah. So
Well, that's the we may say quite typical pressure that comes from the business, that perhaps we can really create some technical debt, maybe we will pay them later. Well, eventually they need to be paid, and sometimes they need to be
exactly.
paid with the real money when we need to increase capacity to somehow balance the performance issue that we are having with such models. All right, so going deeper into this refactor projects, when we have a situation where client approaches us and ask, "Oh, can you help us fix our reports, our semantic models?" What are the typical elements of the work that we do as a team?
Yeah, so first we are starting from introductory workshop. We need to understand the case. Yeah, so why you are contacting with us? What's the problem behind the scenes? Show us what is the problem. This is a quick introductory workshop without any deep dive. Then we need to explore the topic more. So we have some exploratory workshop when we are going to the case, and sometimes a client is showing us, hey, look, this is not working, this is so slow, we are facing this issue. He's contacting us with some other colleagues that they report the issue. So we need to understand the topic. And then we are going into the assessment. And the assessment could be broad or not, so it depends on the case. But when we are talking about the full spectrum of activities, we could, for example, explore capacity metrics to observe what are the cases. We could sometimes turn on the monitoring for the report to explore what are the timings when the user are using the reports, what is causing the biggest issue. Of course, we are having full assessment of the semantic model. So we are grabbing all of the metadata, all of the KPIs for the objects in the model. So how big they are, what are the data types there, what are the measures, what are the other artifacts in the semantic model, are there any calculation groups, and so on and so forth. And of course, sometimes the report is also involved because we need to observe if this is the model issue or maybe the page issue, because sometimes the pages are the main issue. So in example, there are too many visuals on the page, so this is very often the case. Or the client wants to answer on all of the questions in one big table as he is doing in Excel. So I've got everything in Excel and there are every answer there. So it will be also in Power BI. So you are creating a big table with 30 measures inside with conditional formatting, and all of this needs to be calculated up down to the SKU level. So
This shows why we should not apply Excel mindset while creating Power BI reports and semantic models, right?
exactly. We in Clouds on Mars are believing in the best practice for UX UI approach. So we are trying to prepare a storytelling report. So we are trying to deliver the answer on business questions. We are not delivering the visuals. We are answering the business questions. So we have a full, list of questions that we are asking. What you are trying to solve here, what you are facing here, and then we are bringing the analysis, not the visual. Yeah.
But this is one of the reasons, but the second is connected with the performance, right? If someone
Yeah,
has
exactly.
Excel in mind while creating Power BI report, this person may create a huge page with
Of course.
several KPIs
Of course.
loaded in one page, and then we have an explosion of problems. But Radke,
this is exactly the case for financial guys. They love the numbers. They
yes,
just bring me the table.
and they want to feel like we feel it Excel, right?
yes, exactly.
Maybe one more question for me to understand. So, do you believe that really the most of the problem sits in the semantic model rather than the page itself, the report page itself?
No. The problem could be in architecture. in the report or in the semantic model. You need to identify where is the problem. An example I've got currently, I'm doing assessment for a report in a model. In the model, I observe 800 measures, quite a lot of replicated logics. But in the report itself, I've got, as I said, two big tables with a lot of measures, a lot of conditional formatting, a lot of filter influencing those tables. But additional to those two tables, there are also 40 other visuals, and it needs to work for quite a lot of people. So the problem there is on the report, but also on the model side.
So definitely we see here a lot of expert knowledge and many best practices in terms of development itself, but are there any tools involved? What are the typical tools that you use for this kind of refactor projects?
Yeah, so there are obvious tools used by the developers. So all of the tools that are extracting metadata. So the tabular editor, so DAX Studio, of course, Vertipack Analyzer. Of course, in the time of Fabric, we are using semantic link labs, best practice analyzer, and it is a time of AI. So MCP servers, of course, we've got our own skills and our own agents that are extracting also the data and are giving us some high-level summary to speed up the work. We are also creating our own tools, which nowadays is just simpler.
So you mentioned actually three types of tools, the tools that are available on the market and you can purchase them. Some of them are available for free. You mentioned the AI solutions that also can help us analyze the models, but you also mentioned our own tools. Can you mention some of them or what they do, why there was a need for such tools?
Yeah. So, for example, what we created is the tool that is helping us with the assessment of the model to find out which objects are not used. This is obvious question, but tricky to prepare because sometimes you have a one model which is used by 10 reports. Yeah. So you need to find out which columns and which measures are used on all of those reports. Yeah, when this is a big model, you of course need to connect to the Fabric workspace. So you are not working on the desktop then. And of course, there are some tools that are in paid tools on the market. But of course, in those days, we just created our own to make a new features just for us. Yeah. Lately, I even created myself the tool that is helping me to, to cherry pick the improvements to the model between the workspaces or between the desktop and the Fabric capacity. So with the age of AI, you have your needs and you are creating the tool. So this is how it goes.
Great, thank you. Thank you for sharing this, Radek. So when it comes to refactor projects, sometimes we also meet another problem. We focus today mainly on the performance issues, but it may happen that we may have two reports, maybe sometimes even one report, but it's often the case when two reports are involved. And we have one report created for sales team and another report created for the finance team. Let's say they both calculate the margin and it suddenly appears that with the same filters, with the same conditions, we have two different numbers. What is causing problems like this one? What is your experience that you can share with us, Radek?
Yeah, so the metric drift in the organization, it is a problem. As you said, so there are two departments that are looking at the same measure, but the value is just different. So the main cause is you said that they've got common logic, but they don't have a common logic. On paper, it's the same, but behind the scenes, it's different because the model is prepared differently. Yeah, one could have a model that is just star schema. The other one could have the other approach. There could be some even different fact table behind the scenes. So one has filtered out some objects because one department does not look at some part of lines, and that's fine because they are not looking at it. And the other ones are looking on those lines. It happens in financial. They go into details, but sometimes they are aggregating and removing part of the stuff. But what I want to mention here also is that this is big issue because it drives the users to start creating new reports because they don't believe your report. So this is the case. I see two numbers that are different, so I will create my own report to find out what is the final number. Yeah, so it is all about the governance, about the business logics that are written somewhere, that there is a one approach. There is a great feature in Power BI currently that are user-defined functions currently that could be used in many different reports that are supporting this case. But also we are talking here about the gold models, gold data sets promoted in the organizations. Finance team should have an ownership of a finance KPIs, and they are validating those numbers, and at the end they are certifying this data set and promoting this data set as one truth in the organization. So those are also features in Power BI that just needs to be promoted. Of course, there is a data culture behind about the ownership, about the properly handling the data. Yeah, so those are
Great
the
topic for another episode, right? How to organize
yeah,
the governance and the
yeah,
proper
exactly,
use of different features that we have in Fabric and
exactly.
Power BI. So, Radek, maybe last topic of our conversation today. Can you mention some specific projects that had to deal with the performance challenge? I remember at least one project when we were pushing boundaries of Power BI to its limit. So
I want
maybe
to
you
mention
can
it. Yeah.
you can mention this one, but maybe you have also another one that you can share with us.
Yeah. So we've got a quite interesting case. Client contacted with us and told us, I've got a model, but it is not working. I believe it will not work in the future. We try to push the data and it's just not refreshing. It's not performative. If you could take a look at it. So we did an assessment and we find out that this model was prepared, I would say, not from the Power BI developer perspective, not from the best practice of Power BI, but it was somehow prepared from the data engineering perspective. So someone just took the data from database, which was a lot of data, and used just pure table from the database, connected as it thought it will be okay. And it bring, many issues. So what we did, we just rethink and redesign the model. We created a full star schema, but from the Power BI perspective. So we asked which data needs to be there. What is the level of aggregation that we need? Do we really need the lowest level in the database, or could we create some aggregations there? Is this key of product or other part of product needed in the model, or could we create our own? And we find out that there is a way to just bring a star schema with our custom keys, with our aggregated data, and it works. But of course, as I said, business is
It's
it needs
pushing.
to is pushing. Yeah. So business is scaling quite fast. So client told us, okay, guys, it's fine, but we need to have 300 scenarios, and additionally, we will push additional fact table there. Rethink it. Yeah? So we sit up to the table and we have it. Yeah. So we not only redesign, but we change the approach to the data. We just stop bringing the values for the scenarios and we bring only the variance for the scenarios. So this is different approach. We changed how the data is calculating in the model, but it gave us a lot of space, a lot of, possibilities in the model, and 300 scenarios start to work. It was performative. So it was a great adventure. It was, quite the project out of discussions, the approaches, but it was great.
Quite a challenge as well, right?
Yeah.
There are two numbers that I have in mind that are associated with this project. The first number is time to get data for the users in the user interface. What was the expectation in this area? How many seconds were expected?
I believe a few seconds. Yeah. And it was tricky because we've got there a huge, unfortunately, table, but it was a very dynamic table. We pushed field parameters. This is a feature of Power BI to the limits because the table needs to respond on columns, on rows We added a lot of dimensions there and other categories and, data. It works very well, even on the lowest level. And a
So,
great
so
one last
indeed,
one.
okay, go ahead.
Sorry, one last topic, because in this case we also faced the architecture issue. So we find out that report in the middle of the project stopped working. So client contacted with us and told us, "Hey guys, I don't see anything in the report. It's just not drawing anything." Yeah? So we jumped there and we saw this case ourselves. We asked for the fabric capacity metrics, of course. We investigated and we find out that the capacity itself was not managed properly. Capacity was out of the capacity units. The refresh of other models were running for hours. There were some queries that no one was reviewing. And yeah, we just migrate to other capacity and focus on the model.
Which
Yeah.
means that the governance of the capacity may directly impact the performance of a
Of
given
course.
report and the model.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but
Yes.
coming back to this number of seconds at the level of user interface, in this project, the adoption of the report was absolutely the key element of the
Yeah.
success of this project. So, the request we received from the customer was that the numbers needs to appear in the report within single digit number of seconds, cannot be
Yeah,
more,
yeah, yeah.
ideally
I
one
believe it was
second.
the yeah. So something like that. The issue on the report that sometimes we are having are the custom visuals because
Mhm.
custom visuals are drawing a little bit longer. This is not due to the model or the measures. They are just sometimes having the
Nature of
issues with the
custom visuals.
yes. There is a chiclet slicer which we love to introduce, but it has sometimes issues to draw to 2 seconds and it is just like it is, yeah.
And the second number associated with this project, the longest table in this model, how many records did we have
1
there?
billion, I believe. 1 billion, I believe it was. Yeah,
So
it was crazy, crazy number.
pretty huge table. Yeah.
Yeah. And we started from 48 million, I believe. So, and we landed on 1 billion. So,
So switching to another project that you have in mind, Radek, if you can share this story with us too.
yeah. For example, currently I'm doing some investigation, and it is a investigation on the report itself. So the task is just a proof of concept. Look at this page, investigate what is the issue. And as I told you, there are two tables that have a lot of measures inside. What I find out that the model itself has, for example, bi-directional relationships, which are causing the issues. There are a lot of measures which has replicated logic inside, and they are built on top of each other. So this is also create issues. There are a lot of switches inside. So switch is a logic, some kind of if condition, but it gives you more conditions inside. So there is a switch on a switch on a switch on a switch. And all of those conditions at the end are pushing the model to calculate in the slowest possible way. So the first thing that is coming to as a solution is to rewrite the measure or bring some replicated logic, in example, in a calculation group. So I didn't decide what to do next. This is assessment. This is not a refactor. I will propose some logic there. The result for this. Rewriting the measures to make it more simpler, bringing calculation groups, rethinking of the relationships, why they are bidirectional. What I also observed there that there are fact tables that are having the same data but on different level of aggregation. Sometimes this is okay, but I'm not sure if this is the case in this model. And of course, at the end, we have a page which have about 70 visuals or something. So we need to rethink if this is the correct approach to
UX,
this
UI.
page. Yes, exactly. As I said, two different examples. One is to scale to 1 billion. The other one is, okay, report is working slow, review and look at it and help us. Yeah?
Thank you very much for sharing, Radek. So, as we could hear today, business puts a lot of pressures on developers to develop quickly. When this pressure is put on citizen developers, even without the pressure, they may develop a report that is lacking best practices of developing BI reports. On the other hand, because of this pressure, even well-designed report can deteriorate over time and can actually take technical debt that needs to be paid later, because a lot of additions are built on top of existing semantic model or existing report. And this may cause performance issue that in effect creates a problem in the business or creates a cost issue with fabric capacity. You can ask us for help if you have this kind of problems. We'll be happy to help to let your data make an impact. So keep in mind, let your data make an impact. Thank you very much, Radek, for joining Clouds on Mars Products today, and
Thank
see you
you
in another episode, perhaps.
Thank you. Take care. Bye bye.
Bye-bye.